What is up, guys? Today we're going to talk about the worst heroin rattle that I've ever done over the years as a drug addict, what it's like, what it feels like, and the worst rattle I've ever done was the last one up for Valium, Xanax, pregabalin, gabapentin, crack, and alcohol. That was the worst one, but outside of that, I've done a lot of heroin detoxes. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. And yesterday I went to Cineworld, to the cinema, and we went to see, what's it called, Smile 2. Now, it's a brilliant movie, so if you're looking for a good movie, a good horror movie to watch at Halloween, I would definitely recommend Smile 2. I seen the first one, and it was alright, but it wasn't brilliant, but it was alright. So I didn't have big expectations going into Smile 2, but I really enjoyed it. It was brutal, really gory, some really good creative jump scares as well. I don't usually like the loud noise jump scares, but there was some really good creative ones in this. And what it is, it's about like a demon what attaches itself onto people. And it starts playing with the mind and making them see things and hallucinate, and they start going crazy, and it pushes them to a point where they go so crazy they kill themselves, and then whoever's in the room with them, it gets passed on to them. It's a bit like a movie called It Follows, which is on YouTube for free now. If you haven't seen that, go and see that. That's a good movie as well. But yeah, it just gets into their head and just sends them crazy because they're seeing things that aren't there. And it reminded me of when I was detoxing from Valium and Xanax and alcohol. I was hallucinating, you don't know what's real and what's not. So, it reminded me of that. So that's what prompted me to do this video today. So anyway, yeah, probably the worst heroin detox was probably the first one back in 1990. It'd have been 1995, I don't know exactly. And the heroin back then was a lot stronger than what it is now. Like, if you have it now, I've not had it for a while, but the last time I had it, I put it on the foil and I was burning it, and it was just crackling and popping, and it stunk horrible. It was just, by the time it had finished frazzling, there was nothing left. Whereas back in the 90s, you only needed a couple bags, These days, there's people using heroin, banging up a 20 bag, going to the police station the same day and testing negative because there's no in it. But back then, you could put a bag on the foil and it would run really smooth. A full bag would last you, well, you probably only needed like 2 bags a day, and it would hold you all day, and it would run really smooth, like a clear brown. It would smell a bit like tinny, metal, fishy smell, and yeah, it was a lot stronger. And so the first rattle, when the gear's stronger, the rattle's stronger. And so that's what I'm going to talk about, my first ever one. And now the first time I went to prison, I wasn't a heroin addict. But the second time I was, and it all starts in the police station. Now, when you first get locked up, anyone who's been an addict will tell you it's the worst, most horrible place in the world. The police cells, back then there was like piss and snot and blood up the walls. They would take your shoes off and there'd be like a tar, sticky floor. There's like a cold slab to lay on, with a crash mat on it, itchy green blankets. There's always someone screaming all night. And you get that horrible rattling smell. What you can't explain what it is. It's that smell, and you get a headache with it. You can't sleep, so one day feels like 2 days. You're hungry, but you can't eat. It's horrible. And you really contemplate your entire life when you're in them cells. And then the next morning, the group 4 will come to get you. And you're just glad to get out of them cells, You're like, yes, as soon as you hear the keys coming in the door, it's like, buzz in, get me out of here. And in Doncaster, they take you underneath the police station, under the cells. And back then they used to put you all in like a cage together, and you could have a cigarette back then. It's not much, but it's something to look forward to when you're in the cells, You're just glad to get out of those cells. And sometimes, if you're lucky, someone will bring some gear in, I remember when Jimmy Corrie brought some in. It's dead now. And he put it in roll-ups, and we were all smoking his gear, and it took the rattle off for a little bit. And then you have to wait till you go up to court, and it doesn't matter how many times you've been there. it's still, your heart still drops, you know. When you get called out, you've got to go up the steps, even if you know you're getting remanded. And you get to the court, you're waiting for the light to come on so you can go into court, and then you'll open your door, you'll go in and you can see everybody's immaculate. You know, you can smell the perfume, everybody's clean cut. And you're sat there, scruffy, long hair, rattling, it's horrible. And the judge, the stipendiary magistrate, knew me because I was in and out all the time. And he couldn't give me bail because he knew, he said it, you know, he even quoted Porridge. He says, prison for you is an occupational hazard. So if I let you go, I know you're just going to go stealing again. So I'm going to remand you for 3 months or whatever. And even though if you know you're getting remanded, when they say it, you know, your heart drops, and then you've got to go back down and tell everyone, oh, I've been remanded, and then you have to wait for the prison bus. Now there's 2 prison buses, one at 1 p.m. and one at 5. If you get the 1 p.m. one, you'll probably be straight to the prison and straight in. But if you get the 5 p.m. one, there's a chance that you're going to be in a queue. And when you're rattling in a sweatbox, you don't want to be in a queue. You know, it's like, take everything out of your fridge, go and sit in your fridge, shut the door, and then you've got, because you're detoxing, you've got headache, or your bones are hurting, you can't get comfy, you're twitching. So you don't want to be sat in there for any long periods of time. But like I say, if you go at 1 o'clock one, you can get straight in. But by 5, there'll be buses from all over England, you know, from jails that are locked out, from courts all over England. So you could be there ages. And then you get sat in reception and you've got to wait till they do it's a nightmare. And when you get sat in reception, you're sat there, there's you know, everybody's laughing and joking, everybody's clean cut with the Reebok Classics on because they've been in a while. And you're sat there, long hair, skinny as oat, scruffy, just, it's a nightmare. Detoxing as well on top of it. And then you have to sit down there for ages. They'll take all your clothes. Well, they don't take your clothes in, Donny. But they take all your belongings, they log you in, take your photo. And then you go up onto the wing, and that's where you detox. That's where you're going to detox. Because back then, they didn't have a detox wing. They just put you on a normal wing. And Doncatraz had just opened, so it was a really violent prison when it first opened. It was like a triple Cat A, secure, maximum security prison. So there were murderers, terrorists, and the first time I got there, they put me in a cell, and it was really violent because it had just opened, so they didn't really know the ropes. You know, they knew how to run it, but they didn't know all the blind spots. So yeah, it was a rough, tough jail, and as if that's not bad enough, you're rattling from heroin, and I was on the YOs, and anyone will tell you, YOs is way worse than the cons, because they're all running around, they've all got something to prove, you know, they're loud, and they're always fighting, and it's a nightmare. And I remember going on there, and the first person I saw was a guy called Gypsy George. He was fucking huge, and I'm thinking there's no way he's under 21. He was massive, he looked like a 35-year-old bloke. And I remember sitting there looking around, I'm skinny and scruffy, and there's all these big dudes, and I'm like, fucking hell. You know what I mean? How am I going to get through this? And my pad mate, I didn't know it, because I was pretty green, you know, I'd only been in Doncatraz once before. So I didn't really know all the ropes. And my cellmate was a little muppet. And he was saying, oh, yeah, stick with me, you can come and sit with us. And I seemed all right, but then the next morning he moved cells and nicked my tobacco pouch. Because back then you used to get like an old Auburn, Golden Virginia pack of baccy when you got to prison. And he nicked it, and I was detoxing, and I was like, fuck, I can't be arsed, you know, I can't fight like this. I've fucking been in cells for days. I could hardly even stand up. And so I just left it. But then, like, once I put weight on, you know, once I started knowing people, then I went back and I dealt with him. I said, hey, you owe me fucking, you know, and I got it dealt with. But when I first landed there, the next door neighbour was a kid called Salesy from Donny. He's dead now as well. And I remember every morning we'd wake up, we'd come, as soon as the door opened, we'd be like, did you sleep? He'd be like, no. I said, did you sleep? No. Fucking hell, we was... it was like something like 21 days without sleeping. It was absolutely horrible. And it's like all through the night you sat there, you can hear the birds cheeping, you know, and it feels, because you're all day and all night as well, it's like you're doing 2 days, so it just seems like it lasts forever. You've got stomach ache. I remember one of my mates in there, I went into his cell and he was on the bog puking, and I was laughing at him going, dickhead. And then the next day I tried to eat some bourbon biscuits, and then I was on the bog puking, and he come in, he's like, dickhead. And yeah, it's horrible. You're puking, you've got stomach cramps, your head hurts, you can't sleep, you're sneezing, coughing, you're freezing cold, then you're red hot, and you can't keep still. It's a nightmare. There was no TVs back then, so everybody was at the window screaming, and you've got all the other YOs pecking at your head and coming in and out of the cell. It's a nightmare, and it seems to last forever. And it must have been about 3 months before I actually started coming out of the cell and feeling well enough to mingle with people. But yeah, that's what it's like, doing a rattle in prison. Especially on the YOs, it's 100 times worse. But that's what it's like as a heroin addict, you know. It's a treacherous, miserable lifestyle. And I think the first one was probably the hardest, because I didn't know what to expect. Like, now I've done tons of rattles since then, and they get a little bit easier because you know what to expect. You know, it's never nice doing a rattle though, but you know what to expect, so it is a little bit easier. But the very first one was probably the hardest. But anyway, that's the video for today. If you like this video, subscribe to the channel, press the thumbs up. Bonjour.